Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another video. We are going to talk today about taking a 3-week-old to Disney. This will be kind of the start of a set of 3 videos because we've gone 3 times and Aiden was 3 weeks, 6 months, and 1 year. So we're going to do 3 separate videos on traveling, kind of what we did with traveling and kind of our suggestions and tips on traveling with an infant who is 3 weeks, 6 months, and 1 year old. So, first off, when he's for the 3-week-old, first off is plan on using a covered stroller or plan on baby wearing.
Yeah, because germs are real.
yeah. So germs are a thing. You want the covered baby stroller to kind of keep people from just coming up and touching it. Like there's a lot of different people at Disney. Like a lot of them most of them honestly will respect that kind of space. Like if they'll kind of look and be curious, but if they see if they see how young the baby is, and they'll usually ask you about it first. They're like, oh, how old is he? Then you can and if you tell them, oh, he's only 3 weeks old, they will generally keep their distance.
Off.
Like they'll ask you about him, they'll like look at him and everything, but they will generally back off.
But then there's a lot of people who don't necessarily speak English and just different cultures, and they are just like drawn to babies because they're cute and you want to touch them and you want to touch their little feetsies. But germs are real.
Yeah, and especially at 3 weeks old, germs are a big deal.
Yeah.
You generally won't have that many issues, but it's just something to be aware of.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that you would also should also consider baby wearing. So we took on our first trip. We didn't take a stroller on our first trip. Actually, on any of our trips,
We've never taken.
We haven't taken a stroller. And that was just for for the ease of it for us with the first trip or two. The last one we'll get into in that video. But it was just easy when he was 3 weeks old. He's like about this big, and so he just kind of fits it. So we put him in the little carrier on our chest, and he would just sit there, and he just slept the whole time. When they're that little, it's like they want to be that close. They don't really like being in the stroller for extended periods of time.
Yeah.
They want to be close to you. And so having that baby carrier just makes it so that you don't have to worry about them getting upset randomly just because they want to be held and stuff like that. So
yeah, and it worked out great for us. Like he slept in it. He was content.
Yeah.
We pretty much got into a routine where he was in it. He took a nap. We would wake up and we'd change him, we'd feed him, and then he'd go back to sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
It was actually really easy.
It was really there's a lot of people that will tell you, oh, it's so hard taking like an infant, like a 3-week-old to Disney. It's really not. I mean, it is and it isn't. It's not difficult in the sense that like she said, like he would wake up, we'd feed him, put him back in the carrier, and he would go back to sleep. And that's what most of them will do at that age. As they start to get a little older, that's not quite as common.
I think, like, honestly, him at 3 weeks is the easiest trip we took with him.
Yes.
With him being concerned. Like, obviously, not the easiest trip we took.
Yeah.
But when it comes to him and his age, 3 weeks was the easiest.
Right.
Like, super easy.
Yeah. And one last thing about it is that if you are going to be baby carrying, be prepared for some long days because it will get tiring. You will need to rest often because it will wear you out. Even when the baby's only 3 weeks old, like I think he weighed 9-10 pounds at the time, something like that, which doesn't seem like much until you're carrying him around all day long. It gets tiring. So just be prepared to have some long days and just make sure like places to rest and everything.
Take breaks.
Take frequent breaks, and everything like that. So,
especially the moms who just had a baby 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Take it easy. Don't push yourself.
Yeah. If you feel like you need to take a break, take a break. And the dads or the husbands of those moms, pay attention because there are times that she will not want to take a break. She will think that she can just keep going. You need to make her take a break. Because Anna is very notorious for doing that. She's very stubborn. She wants to just keep going. And so I have to just tell her it's time to take a break. So the second thing is keep people away from the baby's face. like we said before, the people will want to kind of play with and like touch the baby, and for the most part, that's fine. Just keep them away from their face. The cast members are really good at it, and the characters are really good at it. You just have to keep an eye on the other guests, because there are other guests that will want to touch them, just like
oh,
if you're
look
okay
at
with
their
it.
little cheeks, and they
Yeah.
want to pinch them and stuff, and I just don't let them touch your baby's face.
Yeah, yeah, and just make sure, like, this is your child. You need to set those boundaries. And tell people, no, dude, like...
And don't be afraid to set those boundaries,
Yeah.
because honestly, especially because there's so many people and so many different germs, and depending on where you're coming from, you could be X amount of miles away from home. You don't want your baby sick or very, very, very sick in the middle of all of this.
Yeah, that's not going to make for a good vacation.
No,
So.
protect yourself, protect your baby.
Yeah.
Protect your health. That's what's really important there.
Yeah. So, number 3 is to use the baby care centers.
Yes.
So there's a baby care center in every park. Hi, Ellie. Yeah, there's one in every park, and they will. And there's actually a lot of cast members that as soon as they see you walking in with, especially with an infant that you're like carrying, they will a lot of times immediately stop you and be like, "Hey, just so you know, there's a baby care center. Here's where it is," and they will tell you where it is, even if you already know.
I was gonna say, I feel like almost every cast member that we encountered on just like a casual basis mentioned it. I don't.
Yeah, at the very least, they were like, "Do you know where about our baby care centers?" We're like, "Yeah, we've been using them."
Yeah. So like, I think just about every, like, the photographers were mentioning it to us. Cashiers in some of the shops were mentioning to us.
Yeah.
Like, all over the place. They saw us, they would mention, oh, there's a baby care center. So it's hard to get by without knowing it exists.
Yeah, they're very good at that. So just make sure that you know where they are and make use of them. Hello, Ellie. The other thing is, baby care centers are not just for feeding the children.
Yeah. No,
they have, like, the one in Magic Kingdom has a changing room, and it has a little kind of feeding room. There's like high chairs and stuff.
High chairs, and there's some little tables.
And some little tables in there. And they have a nursing room.
And
then a little kind of sitting area. And each one in each park.
And they also have a little place where you can buy baby stuff.
Oh, yes.
Or microwave bottles and get clean filtered water. That was a big
each one
thing.
of them has that.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's, I think, something worth really mentioning is that there's clean, cold, filtered water in all of the baby care centers.
Yes.
So you don't have to use the weird sulfury Florida water to make your baby's formula. You can use fresh, clean water that they have in there.
Yeah. So, and they're not just for feeding the babies. Like, you can go in there and just let your kid take a nap, or kind of let them run around for a little bit. The one in Animal Kingdom especially has a really big area that's like almost like a playroom. Like, it just has a bunch of tables in it, but it's a really big room. And so when we went in there, there was a couple of kids that were just running around. It was 2 kids, a brother and a sister, I think. Oh, there was 3 kids. There was another kid there too.
Yeah, because there was the little girl and the 2 boys.
Yeah, and then we were able to let Aiden just get down and kind of run around with them, and it was a lot of fun. And it's a good way to kind of get some of their energy out.
And it's cool and
air conditioned, so it's a good way to get them out of the heat too. So just keep those in mind. So
don't feel like when you have to change your baby that you have to walk all the way back to the baby care center.
So like, if you're in Epcot and you're over, across the lagoon in Japan or something like that, to get to the baby care center, you would have to go all the way back around the lagoon, past Mexico, and up towards a little ways towards the entrance. That's where the baby care center is. You don't need to do that.
In pretty much every men's and women's restroom, there is a changing table. And when you go in there, don't look for those plastic ones that fold down on the wall. These are all built-in solid tables.
I don't know if they're marble, but they look like marble.
But
it's countertop. Yeah,
but it's all counter. It's really nice, and they're huge changing tables. Like, I could put Aiden on there with the diaper bag and have it all spread out and still have wiggle room.
Yes.
So don't think you have to walk all the way back there to change your baby.
Yeah. No,
and don't let your husbands think that they can't go change the baby, because there are changing tables in the men's restrooms.
Don't let them tell you that they can't change them because there's no changing table in there. They're lying to you. They just don't want to change the table.
There's changing tables, I promise you. And the lines are shorter in the men's restrooms to change baby.
Yes.
So that's a really good excuse to make them change all the diapers.
Yes. Yes. And men, like, especially with the child being like 3 weeks old, she's already tired. She gave birth to a baby 3 weeks ago. Like, you should just volunteer for it. Like, I did that when we were there. I was like, no, I can go in and change him. Because it's just like that nice thing you can do for her, so that she's not having, to constantly be the only one being the parent, essentially. It just kind of gives her a break for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
So, number 4 is nursing. So, I'll let you take most of this one, because I don't nurse the baby.
So if you are nursing, don't feel like you have to be modest. That's completely your choice if you really do want to cover up.
And that's kind of how she started out too when we first got there.
Yeah.
And she was trying to cover up and everything. Aiden hated it.
Yeah.
He was like, get this out of my face.
Yeah, and it was hot and sticky, and it was frustrating trying to get him to eat while he was covered up, and he didn't want to eat while he was covered up, and I was hot and sweaty from trying to keep him covered up and from carrying around a baby, and it's just like, I know that there's a lot of different cultures there and everything like that, but honestly, they don't care. You do not have to be modest if you don't want to.
It was our first day there. On that first trip, that we were in Hollywood Studios, and Anna was sitting down to nurse Aiden, and we were just kind of out over by the Muppets area, and she finally she was like, this is just not working, and she just literally looked at me and she was like, you know what, screw this, and just flapped herself open, her shirt open, and just started feeding, and he went super well after that.
Yeah, and I mean part of that could be that when in those 3 weeks prior, when we were home, I didn't use any sort of cover because it's just me.
You were just at home,
Yeah, so, and maybe that's why he didn't like the cover, but regardless, if you don't normally nurse with a cover, don't feel like you have to because you're there with a bunch of people. Honestly, nobody will even look twice at you.
Yeah.
I feel
we had one person between all 3 trips. We had one person, and it was that first time that she decided to just go for it and nurse. We had one person, some old man,
give us
that walked by and gave us the stink eye and everything. But that was, for the most part, she had more people smiling at her than anything else.
Yeah. Honestly, like, nursing is so not a big deal there. It really, like, we saw and then once I kind of realized it, like, we saw so many women breastfeeding without covers and just doing what they needed to do to keep their baby happy, and so that's
all it comes down to. Like, that's your main concern, keeping your baby happy. You're not there to please everyone else. You're there to keep your baby happy.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, like, also don't feel like you have to go back to the baby care centers to nurse.
Just wherever. It's, like I said, when talking about the distance in the park, these parks are big. So the baby care centers are up kind of towards the entrance of 3 of them. Animal Kingdom is kind of in the middle, but the Epcot, Hollywood Studios, and Magic Kingdom are all up towards the front of the park. So if you're in the back of whichever park, it's going to take you a long time to get up there. That your baby's not going to want to wait that long to nurse.
I mean, depending on the situation, like in Magic Kingdom in particular, if there's a parade going on,
you're not going to be able to get there.
It could take you upwards of 20 minutes just to get back to the baby care center,
if not longer.
So that's why I said upwards. So just do what you gotta do. I mean, honestly, I have pictures of us on rides where I'm nursing Aiden. Just because that's when he was hungry, that's where I happened to be. It worked out pretty great.
And she made sure that it was covered up enough that, like, the picture, the other people that were on the ride with us weren't going to have a picture of just, her nursing the kid.
Well, and I was
You actually can't tell in those pictures. You actually can't really tell that she's nursing unless you knew that she was.
Well, because I was wearing nursing clothing.
Yeah.
And so,
it
like,
was
you
easy
would
to just...
you would never know that I was nursing. So
yeah.
Honestly, they'll just nurse your baby when the baby's hungry. Don't walk all the way back to the baby care center.
It's not necessary.
If you happen to be nearby, don't get me wrong, it's going to be a better situation. It's cool. It's air conditioned. But don't feel like you have to go all the way back.
Right.
And if you're a pumping mom, you can use the baby care centers because you can use the nursing room. They have outlets.
Yeah.
But most often, if you ask a cast member nearby if there's a quiet spot where you can pump, they'll find you a place with an outlet where you can pump.
Yeah, they will. They're incredibly helpful.
Yeah, so don't feel like you have to go all the way back to the baby care center to pump.
Yeah. Number 5, and the last one is packing. So, it is really easy, especially if you're a new parent, like we were. It is very easy to overpack, and it is also very easy to underpack. You're going to want to kind of do a little bit. I don't even know how you did it. I did none of the packing for the first trip. I helped pack for the other 2, which meant that she had already gathered all the stuff. I just helped her put it in the suitcase. So,
I think it was like the things that we needed that we didn't have, I feel like are critical, and so we packed them for the other 2 trips, and I don't think we used any of it, like the saline and stuff like that. I don't think we used them on the other 2 trips.
I don't think so.
But like towards the very end of the trip, Aiden started getting a stuffy nose, and he was having trouble breathing when he was asleep.
Yeah.
And
he was in a different climate than he had been used to for the first couple weeks of his life.
And so like we had the little bulb syringe to suck his nose out,
thankfully,
and which again is not something I would have thought to pack. So it's just a miracle that it was in the diaper bag and it happened to make it on the trip with us. But we didn't have any saline, and so as a good alternative, you can use breast milk as saline, and it will help loosen mucus in their nose. But that was not something that I wanted to do ever again. That was incredibly difficult to try and drop little drops of breast milk into an infant's nose who can't breathe and is screaming
because he can't breathe and is trying to go to sleep.
Yeah, so just packing saline would have saved us so much. And we didn't even think to pack. We didn't even have saline. Like, that's not even something we realized we needed.
Until we got home.
But then, like I said, we packed it on the next 2 trips and
didn't need it.
Never used it.
Nope.
So, it's kind of like, it's just that one thing. It's like, you're going to have to either pack it and not use it, potentially, or not pack it and maybe need it. Yeah. So, I think it's just that fine line of trying to decide what's worth it to you. Right. Like, honestly, if we really wanted to, there's a Walmart just down the street. We could have Ubered over and got saline or whatever we may have needed from Walmart. Yeah. But we didn't. We really didn't need much more than what we packed. No. But, or you could pack it and just have that space taken up.
Overpacking is always going to be safer, because if you have something, but you didn't end up needing it, that's better than needing it but not having it.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if it's something that like you aren't able to get a hold of easily while you're there. Yeah, it's just easier to overpack a little bit, like. Keep an eye on your, 50-pound weight limit for your bags and everything. But it's better to pack more than you need. Yeah. Because then at least you had it in case you did need it.
And medications, even if it's something that they don't take regularly, take it with you, because you never know. Like, we took all of Aiden, not the first trip because he didn't have any of that stuff first trip, but his other trips we took all of his medication, like the Benadryl and ibuprofen and Tylenol,
And the gripe water.
And gripe water because it was better to have it and not need it than we're sitting there with a baby who's breaking out in hives and having to rush to get Benadryl.
Yeah.
I would rather just have it than
exactly
have to panic about that.
Yeah.
So just that's just those things. Just pack it, and it's better safe than sorry.
Yeah. And I'm gonna add something on here that I just thought of as a kind of a number 6 or kind of a bonus thing. This goes mostly for new parents. I mean, it might happen to other parents who have a 3-week-old too, if you have other kids. But be prepared for a meltdown, not of the child, but of you. Especially if you're like, you are in the parks for hours upon hours at a time. If you're not like, we weren't going back and taking breaks. We were taking breaks in the park, and we were in Magic Kingdom, and we were there for 14 hours one day. 14 or 15 hours.
It was a really
we were
long
there
day.
from open all the way, almost until they were closed, because our dinner at Tony's it started at like 8:45 or something like that.
It was almost 9.
It was almost,
I think our reservation was 8:45, but we didn't actually
we didn't actually get our food and everything until like 9:15. And Aiden was not happy. He was tired. It was noisy. That's what we figured out was the biggest problem for him that night was the noise. Because he wanted to go to sleep but couldn't because it was too noisy.
Tony's like really echoey, and like the sound is really harsh in there.
Yeah.
It's like it's not any noisier than it was in the parks all day long, but the noise is a lot sharper.
It doesn't spread out, into the ether, as it were. And so then at the end of that, we got back to the resort, and I finally got him to kind of go to sleep on the way there because I just happened to cover his ear because he was chewing on my thumb. We didn't have a pacifier at the time. He was chewing on my thumb, and I just happened to cover his ear as he was laying against my chest, and so both his ears were covered, and he went to sleep. It's like, oh, okay, it was a noise. But then when we got back, and when we got back to the room, he was screaming again, and she went in and like gave him a bath and everything, and then she stayed in the bath, and I was out taking care of him while he was screaming and crying. I couldn't figure out why he was screaming and crying. I had also had a long day. I didn't know what his problem was. And about 10 minutes of him screaming and everything, I'm crying, he's crying, everything's going wrong. And I finally go in and get her, and she'd fallen asleep in the bath. She was tired.
I was tired.
And so I was like, I don't know what's going on with him. He won't stop crying. I've tried everything. Like, he doesn't need change. He doesn't need this. He doesn't need this. And so she was like, okay. So she got out of the bath and went and took care of him. I collapsed on the bathroom floor and cried some more. And it was just... He was tired. I was tired. She was tired. It was a really long day. And so when you have something like that, you're already tired because this is a 3-week-old. You're not getting a whole lot of sleep. So be prepared for you yourself to have a meltdown because it most likely will happen. Maybe not quite in the extreme of my complete mental breakdown, but be prepared for something similar to that to happen because it most likely will. So I just want to prepare you for that because it's not fun. But if you're not prepared for that to happen, it can ruin your trip. I didn't let it. I have a good enough optimistic personality that I didn't let it affect the rest of the trip because that was like 4 days in to our 10-day trip. But it can affect the rest of your trip. So just be aware of that. So, but with that is going to be the end of our list here. So we'll be back with the next one where we'll go over taking our 6-month-old on a trip to Disney. So
I feel like I've been to Disney.
Apparently you're tired. So, but until then, we will see you guys next time.